actually likely, very likely, that those two favorites do not win. If they don't win, who do you like to be, I guess, the solo rider or a rider in a small group that stays away?
For me, it's very, very simple. It's Remco Evenepoel. I think Remco is in amazing shape. He's on cloud 9 after his gold medal in the time trial.
Hi, I'm Spencer Martin, along with Johan Bruyneel, and this is Outcomes.
Outcomes is not an online gambling operator or a gambling site of any kind. We are simply here to provide information about sports betting for entertainment purposes only. It is a responsibility of all visitors to this podcast to check current local laws in their area or country before doing any gambling online. It is your responsibility to know and follow your local laws in place. Although we try best to provide accurate information on Outcomes, we cannot be held responsible for any inaccurate or incorrect information which is mentioned on this show. If you place any bets based on the conversations on Outcomes, you confirm or understand that it is possible to lose some or all monies used when betting on sports or doing any gambling. You cannot hold Outcomes responsible for any such losses. Our podcast is here to provide entertainment and should be viewed as that and nothing more. Thanks for tuning in.
Everybody, welcome back to Outcomes. We are predicting the Olympic Games road race, both for the men's and the women's. We'll start with the men's. It's a 272-kilometer road race. It starts in the outskirts of Paris, finishes with multiple circuits in Paris, finishing right in front of the Eiffel Tower. Quite a bit of elevation gain, about almost 3,000 vertical meters. But we'll list off the favorites from Unibet in Europe. I'll call out better prices when I see them on main U.S. books like FanDuel and DraftKings. And then Johan will tell us how this is going to play out. This is a notoriously difficult race to predict, but will tell us who's going to win. So the big heavy favorite is Mathieu van der Poel at plus 150, Wout van Aert plus 500, Remco Evenepoel plus 550, Mads Pedersen plus 650, Julian Alaphilippe plus 1,600, Jonathan Narvaez plus 1,800, Jasper Stuyven plus 2,000, Christophe Laporte plus 2,200, Viniam Girmay plus 3,300, Mark Hirschi plus 4,000, Matteo Jorgensen plus 4,000, Michael Matthews plus 4,000. If you're wondering what these numbers mean, it means if you bet $100 on Mathieu van der Poel, you'll get $150 of profit for a $250 total return. But Johan, how's this going to play out? And who's going to win? And we should note these are raced as national, not trade teams, and you have much smaller teams. The biggest teams only have 4 riders, I believe, and not many teams have 4 riders, so it's incredibly hard to control.
Yeah, this is a very, very different race than what they're used to the whole year. Not even the World Championships or anything similar to this. As you say, there's teams of 4 riders. There's only 4 teams with 4 riders, actually. Belgium, France, Denmark, and Slovenia. The other teams, the Netherlands, for example, UK. Actually, the UK also has 4 riders. Sorry, the Netherlands only has 3 riders. Some teams have only 1 rider. So only 89 cyclists at the start of this race. 273 kilometers. Going to be a very long day with such a small pack. So I think. If you look at the 89 participants, there's probably 30, 35 riders that are in there that actually don't belong there at that level, right? So that's the tricky part of this race is early breakaway, and then which teams will control the race and which teams have the manpower to control the race. If you look at the Netherlands, for example, as you say, Mathieu van der Poel is the heavy favorite. He only has 2 teammates. One is Dylan van Baarle, which he will want to keep for the end. And then he has only Dan Hol, who is his only gregario, who will do the work. So, the way this normally will work is obviously the favorites will want to save themselves for the final. And if it's a breakaway of some unknown riders, it's not so much to worry about, but inevitably there will be somebody in there that they say, this guy, we can't give him too much time. So normally there's going to be an alliance between different teams. Let's say, for example, if there's 3 or 4 teams with 4 riders, you have Belgium, you have France, you have the UK, you have Denmark. Well, they will probably make an agreement that say, okay, we put 1 rider each.
Yeah.
We will sacrifice 1 rider. So if they have 4 strong riders, in theory, that those 4 strong riders together can control a group of 10, 15 riders with not such strong riders in there. That's normally the way it will work. Long race for such a small peloton. Luckily, it won't rain. which is huge news for this circuit in Paris, because we've seen what happened in the time trial with the rain. Not extremely hot either, so 25, 26 degrees, so ideal weather to race. Although, the temperature in a big city can feel a lot warmer than the temperature really is, but I don't think the temperature will be a factor. I see this playing out between all the strong riders, with the qualities of a classics rider. You have Mathieu van der Poel, you have Wout van Aert, you have Mats Pedersen, you have Remco's in great shape, you have Alaphilippe, but my big favorite is Mathieu van der Poel. I think he had an ideal preparation for this. The Tour de France, he was on a training camp at the Tour de France basically for the Olympics, and he finished really well. Didn't have any problems after the tour. Could prepare he didn't do the time trial, compared to, for example, Van Aert and Remco, which are, in my opinion, his two big rivals. So Mathieu van der Poel, especially with that last climb to Montmartre, it's 1.5 kilometer climb, cobbled. I think that's an ideal terrain for Mathieu van der Poel, although it will be difficult for him also to shake off Wout van Aert and even Remco, but we've also seen that even if Mathieu van der Poel goes with Wout van Aert to the finish, when they're two guys, the majority of the times Mathieu van der Poel has won. So he's my big favorite at plus 150.
Yeah, it's weird because he's not the better sprinter, but he does almost always beat Wout van Aert at the finish. The price is tough to swallow at plus 150. It's a good pick, by the way. Everything you said, the course suits him. The way it could play out suits him. I think he got in great shape at the tour. He looked better at the end than the beginning. And the thing about Van der Poel is I'm done looking at him at the tour and thinking this guy's not in shape, because he always comes out of it looking incredible. He is plus 220 on FanDuel. So that's a much, much better price. So if you're in the US, go there. That's good. I'm looking down at Wout van Aert. He's plus 500 on Unibet. He's plus 650 on FanDuel. That feels like even if we have, you say it could be hard for Van der Poel to shake everybody loose. He didn't have any trouble doing that in the spring. So if he's on form, he might be unstoppable. But I'm looking at Van Aert as basically just a budget version of Van der Poel. Like if you like him at plus 220, Wout van Aert at plus 650. I mean, those two guys are like custom. This course is custom made for them. So I'm going to pick Van Aert just because the price is so much better. And I do think he was building through that tour. He looked good in the time trial. I mean, to get a bronze, even let's say Tarling doesn't flat, he gets fourth in the time trial. That's a good result. It's hard to get, especially going from where he was stage 7 of the tour, where he looked so bad in that time trial, to come back and be world-class. That shows he's building incredibly well. I'm going to pick him at plus 650.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage of Wout van Aert is that he does have a stronger team than Van der Poel. The four Belgian guys, I mean, look at the two Gregarios or Jasper Stuyven and Tiesj Benoot. I mean, it's kind of scary how strong they are. And then he also has the advantage that not all the weight, all the responsibility of Belgium is just for Van Aert. There's Remco, who is the other leader, so they can share responsibilities, and maybe that's an advantage. Although I think the advantage is probably more for Remco than for Wout in this case. But we have to consider that Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert are the two big favorites for this race. We've said it all along. This is an ideal course for them, especially the distance, Spencer. It's going to be so hard at the end. Even if 2,800 meters. It's not. I mean, it's accessible for a lot of professional riders, but man, the repetition of these climbs at the end. They get into Paris with, I think, about 215 kilometers in the leg. So you have 60 kilometers of circuits, of which they do 3 times the Montmartre climb, which by the way, we did it. Lance and I did it a few months ago. It's spectacular scenery, but yeah, I mean, those two riders have, in my opinion, are one step above everybody else.
Yes, couple thoughts. And it's not easy kilometers when you're outside of the city. Like, it's a lot of up and down. There's not a lot of flat on the course. the city circuits, for reasons I don't fully understand. I also rode that climb. I rode it on a Volib Paris city bike, so I'm sure that's exactly how it's going to feel for the riders in the race. But something happens
that's a non-electric bike.
Yeah, it is the non-electric. Yes.
Oh, wow. That's pretty impressive.
I didn't spring for the electric, but something happens inside the city where they race harder. It's just like these city circuits are all out. And this race actually reminds me a lot of the Leuven World Championships in 2021. I went back and rewatched a bit of that today. It was like, it's actually shocking when you're watching a lot of trade team racing to go watch national team racing. It is, because I was reading someone's review of tomorrow, and they're saying, I don't see how any sprinters are going to get dropped. But the racing is it's almost frenetic. Like people lose their minds and it's just constant attacking. And it's not that people get dropped. It's that small groups form. Someone doesn't make it, then you have another group bridges up to it. It's just kind of the race happens from the front versus from the back, which is what would normally happen in a trade team race. And here's the tricky thing about the Olympics. So I'll just read out the last few winners. Richard Carapaz, 2021. Greg Van Avermaet, 2016. Alexander Vinokurov, 2012. Sammy Sanchez, 2008. None of those guys would have been considered favorites going into the race. And it's because the race was so chaotic and hard to control that they kind of wiggled off the front at the end. I'm actually a little fuzzy on how the 2008 played out. That happened in the middle of the night for me, and I don't think I had video on demand at the time. So it's very possible I haven't seen that race for quite some time. But Vinokurov got away at the end. Greg Van Avermaet, he was in a group with Fulsang, I believe, maybe even Fulsang and Micah, and they held off a chasing group. Carapaz, things got tactical. People were standing at each other. He got away. Same thing could happen tomorrow. So if those two favorites, actually very likely that those two favorites do not win. If they don't win, who do you like to be, I guess, the solo rider or a rider in a small group that stays away?
For me, it's very, very simple. It's Remco Evenepoel. I think Remco is in amazing shape. He's on cloud 9 after his gold medal in the time trial. He was flying. I've seen some stats on him now from training. He trained really well. When you look at him, he looks actually super, super strong. He looks scary strong, actually. So I think Remco on this course, it's going to be tactical for him if he wins. But once he gets 25, 30 meters, he's gone. I mean, nobody's getting on that wheel. So he could, in theory, take advantage of the huge rivalry between Mathieu and Wout, and ride to another gold medal, double gold medalist in pro cycling. I can see it happening. He's plus 550 on Unibet. I don't know if you have any better numbers in the US.
No, the Unibet one is the best I can find. Plus 550 is actually pretty good for a guy that he's been known to win a road race or two. He's won a couple of monuments in his time.
And also, let's not forget, until before this Tour de France, he was famous for being stronger in one-day races than in stage races. So, he's definitely my follow-up choice after Mathieu.
Well, here's the thing about Evenepoel too. If he goes on the attack, this happened in Leuven as well. I think he went too early in Leuven. But if he goes on the attack, Wout van Aert's sitting behind. And Jasper Stuyven's sitting behind. Tej Minuut's sitting behind. So who's going to want to pull him back with those guys sitting there? It just puts them in a really tough position. Don't forget, he won a world championship solo by attacking early and riding away. So he could do it. Has anyone won the time trial road race in the same Olympics before?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. That seems... Here's my concern about Evenepoel, though. I felt like at Glasgow, the constant the technical nature of the city part of the race, every corner he was losing a little bit, or not losing, he was expending slightly more energy than guys like Van der Poel and Van Aert and Pogacar, and eventually maybe he got tailed off because of that.
That's true, but you can't compare this race, Spencer, because there's a small bunch. Once they get to the finishing circuit, there's going to be 30 guys left. And there's no one team that can, like, if you remember Glasgow, the Danish team came in and they blew everything apart with 8 riders or 7 riders. This is not going to happen in this race here. There's no one team that can put this strong tempo with multiple guys. For example, Van der Poel is going to be down to Van Baarle. That's it. He's only going to have Van Baarle left. The French guys are going to have 2 guys left. And then maybe the UK, maybe they may have their 4 riders because they decide not to work. But it's not like the UK, the Great Britain is going to, put Remco in trouble with their pace. So I don't think it's going to be an issue for Remco, the technicality.
No, I buy it. You've convinced me. I mean, now that you mentioned that, the team that would pull him back would be Belgium, because that's one of the strongest teams. They're not going to be able to pull him back, obviously. Slovenia, a lot less incentive to do that now without Pogačar. Great Britain, they don't. I mean, they have Pidcock, but I don't know how he's going to be after that. That's a very specific effort in the mountain bike race that he won with. I still don't think that being a world-class mountain biker and being a world-class road racer can be 2 things that happen concurrently, or at least maybe not world-class, but like the best you can possibly be in both events. So I have to think Pidcock's going to not be at his best because of that. Plus 550, it's a pretty good price for a rider that, as you say, was known as a one-day racer. And I'm changing my mind here live on the air. I was going to go Jonathan Narvaez at plus 1,800 because he's very good, because he's one of the only riders to ever beat Tadej Pogačar at the end of a race. He's plus 2,500 on FanDuel, by the way. I'm changing to Matteo Jorgensen, plus 4,000. I'm looking at that price. That is, and part of the reason is I went back and looked. No one's ever won the Olympic road race, at least since it became a professional event, without doing the Tour de France. You said in our personal conversation that times have changed, maybe training's better. People can do things we didn't think they could do before. That is possible, but just think about Jorgensen in the final days of that tour, looking so strong in those breakaways. And if things get tactical, that's exactly the type of rider that can stay away. Actually, Nielsen Palace, his countryman, was up there at the end of the Leuven World Championships that we referenced, and didn't finish it off. Obviously, Julian Alaphilippe won that, but that is like the type of move Jorgensen could do.
Absolutely.
Or Jorgensen.
Yeah, Jorgensen can do that. And he's that type of rider. I mean, he's good in those spring classics. He's good on cobbles. Absolutely. He's definitely not as explosive as Van der Poel and Van Aert, but he's one of those guys who can take a flyer, and he's gone before you know it, and then go get him.
And I kind of wonder if explosiveness matters. I kind of wonder if it's overrated in a 272 kilometer road race that gets extremely tactical with small teams, because
no, yes, you're right. But man, the explosiveness of Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel is second to none. That's their big advantage compared to anybody else who is, on a super high level physically. They have that extra here that they can accelerate on those walls, with cobbles. I mean, it's not double digits, but it's going to be hard, man. It's going to be hard. So I think an attack of Mathieu and Wout on the last climb on Montmartre is going to make the difference.
I guess that's assuming that they're not stuck behind, everyone's staring at them, and Jorgensen's up the road. I mean, I'm looking at the profile right now. There's a sustained climb, or an entire climb, that is 10% average. That's before they get into the circuit. But there's some steep climbs on here. And the main one to Montmartre is 1.1K at almost 6%. They do it 3 times. It is a long way to the finish, but a solo rider could stay away, especially a solo rider, as we saw at the Tour, like Jorgensen with the world-class engine. It's not impossible. There's obviously.
I think it's a great choice. I think it's a great choice, especially at plus 4,000. That's that's something that if there's one guy that I can see do this, it's Matteo Jorgensen.
And I mean, there's a lot of riders we're not mentioning, like anyone in the top 20 of this race. Like I'm just even looking at Lascano, like world-class rider. But the fun thing about the Olympics is Lascano's at plus 6,600. You're getting incredibly good riders for very good prices. So if you want to play even like Evenepoel, Van Aert, Jorgensen, anyone but Van der Poel, you pay the Van der Poel tax if you bet on him. at plus 150, you don't have a lot of wiggle room further down the line. But if you go with those other riders, you can bet on quite a few and still make money. Another one I want to throw out there is Wout van Aert, plus 140 for the podium. I mean, this guy's Mr. Podium, especially at national team races. That's one I feel pretty good about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually, I'm trying to think of a race where he hasn't. It's actually hard to think of national team races that he hasn't podiumed on. Incredibly consistent rider. And we're not going to do head-to-heads because it's a national team one-day race. That'd be insane. But we will do the women's race. But to quote our leader, Lance Armstrong, we got to take care of some business. Hey everybody, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip arm day. Maybe you never skip leg day. Well, let's be honest, that's the one you're going to skip. But what about therapy day? When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know it makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. When you feel like you've no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. Don't I know that during Grand Tours and other races? I know in my experience, it's really helpful when I'm talking to someone to help me balance my busy work life with my home life. And it's really helpful with, learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries, and empowers me to be the best version of myself. And it really isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking about starting therapy, I would really give BetterHelp a try. I'm someone who will always procrastinate things if I think it's going to be too complicated. Like, if I have to go out, I have to find a therapist. How do I know if I like them? I just won't do it. I get overwhelmed and I'll stop right there. But BetterHelp is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. I just went onto the website, I filled out a brief questionnaire, and I got matched with a licensed therapist right away. And here's what's really important. You can switch therapist at any time for no additional charge. And that's important because you can make sure you're getting someone that's perfect for you and who you gel with, which is one of the most important parts of therapy. So never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/TheMove today to get 10% off your first month. That's the move spelled out. So that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/TheMove. All right, well, we'll get back to our show now. All right, we're back, Johan. We're predicting the women's race. It is significantly shorter than the men's race. It's, I believe, 170 kilometers, but it does this.
It's 158 kilometers.
158, but it does the same. It's correct in saying it's the same circuit in the city, right?
At the end, yes.
Yeah, so it will play out roughly the same. It's like the men's race. It's very weird because it's not strong teams. So, and it's even more concentrated between the top teams, and no one will want to help other teams. Like we saw in Tokyo, things can get really weird and really fun to watch. I'll list off the favorites on Unibet. I'll call out better prices when I see them on FanDuel and DraftKings. But Lotto Kopecky, the reigning world champion, heavy favorite at plus 175. Is actually very similar odd structure to the men's race. Lorena Wiebes plus 400, Marianne Vos plus 450, Demi Vollering plus 600, Elisa Longo Borghini plus 1,000, Elisa Balsamo plus 1,400, Grace Brown, the time trial winner, plus 2,200, Katsia Niadoma plus 2,500, Kristen Faulkner plus 3,300. They go on and on. We'll call them out when we need to. But Johan, how do you think this is going to play out if you think it's different from the men's, and who do you think has the best chance of winning?
Well, I think the difference here, which is different from the men, is that the three big favorites, in my opinion, which are, Lotte Kopecky, Demi Vollering, and Lorena Wiebes, two Dutch riders, one Belgian rider, they're teammates. The three of them are on SD Works. Yeah.
We didn't talk about that with the men's, but that does matter.
Yeah. Demi Vollering is leaving SD Works, so that's obviously not a factor anymore. So they're going to go for their own chances. But still, Demi Vollering and Lorena Wiebes are teammates on the Dutch team. So it's very difficult to predict. But, the usual suspects. For me, I think I'm going to go with Lotte Kopecky. This is a good course for her. She's in good shape. She was okay in the time trial. She crashed She crashed, but she was okay. I think she had a good preparation. She was second in the Giro d'Italia, by the way, with very, very little difference to Longo Borghini.
A second, I believe.
A few seconds. A few seconds. Yeah. So she's obviously in great shape, and this is a good course for her. She's, explosive on those climbs. She's fast. She will have to ride away. She will have to get rid of Lorena Wiebes. But I'm going to pick her as my choice to win the race at 175.
Yeah, I mean, she's the favorite for a reason. Like Van der Poel, when she's on form, she looks unstoppable in these races. I'm going to go, though, Wiebes. Lorena Wiebes plus 400. I mean, I still don't understand why. I don't think people have fully understood that if it comes to a sprint, you're losing to her. But that's how it works out. If she is in any type of group, she will win. So the fact, just playing the numbers and the probabilities of that with those odds at plus 400, how good that is, I'm going to pick her just because she needs, fewer things to go right than Lotto Kopecky does at plus 175. Yeah. So that's just why I like Wiebes.
Yeah, I mean, it's 158 kilometers, 1,700 meters of elevation. It's it's not super hard. Although, a championship with repetition of climbs is completely different. But I think it's, Wiebes needs to do one thing, just make sure that she's in a little group, but she will have to react straight on the wheel of Lotte Kopecky. Obviously, she can't react when Demi Vollering attacks. She can't react when Marianne Vos attacks. So that's in her disadvantage, maybe in the advantage of Vollering and Vos. But this is, if Lorena Wiebes is to be Olympic champion, this is her course. This is her course. It's not going to get any better than this in the next 4 or 8 years, let's say.
Yeah. And her team, it does make it slightly difficult because those two are going to attack, which will make the race harder, which will make her staying in the group less likely. But it also means that people might sit around and wait for Demi Vollering to attack to follow her. So the race, it could almost pacify the race in some ways. She's so strong, though.
You could also have this. Sorry to interrupt, Spencer. You could also have the scenario that Lotte Kopecky attacks and that Demi Vollering has to chase her down with Lorena Wiebes in the wheel.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at this Dutch team. I mean, they also have Ellen van Dijk, who can weld almost anything together. So, I mean, this is super interesting. I'm just looking at these teams. Same thing applies in the men's race. You have these riders who are rivals throughout the year that are teammates, like Vos and Demi Vollering. And then you have teammates like Vollering and Kopecky, who are now rivals. But then you have the added complexity that, like, Kopecky and Vollering, there's clearly some sort of rivalry there, even though they're on the same team. And how will that play out, especially with Vollering leaving the team? And then you have the added, I don't think we've mentioned this, no race radios. So you'd think, oh, how much does that really matter? It matters a lot, to the point that we saw in Tokyo where, who was it? It was Van Vleuten. Monique Van Vleuten thought she won, finished the line. There was actually a rider up the road that had been up the road since the very beginning of the race. Yeah.
Nobody knew. Yeah.
It forgot, because they were catching breakaway riders and forgot there was one more. And it's the old, it's like when you're a junior, you have to count the breakaway, and then you have to count when you catch them. That's what they were having to do. And a lot of these riders, I mean, Johan, I think you said your son uses like race radios in his junior races. Like, these kids these days, I don't think they know.
Not even junior. He's not even junior yet. He's before. It's a category lower than junior. Yeah. They're already using race radio. So, anyway, I don't think that the Dutch team will be fooled twice.
Especially on a circuit with people there. Tokyo was a little weird because there was no people on the circuit.
Exactly.
Yeah. So someone could inform them that there is, in fact, a rider up the road. Looking further down the list, if the same thing happens that has happened in the men's race in the past, where a rider plays off like a tactical game between the favorites, who do you think could spoil that?
For me, my wild card is in the other scenario is no doubt Grace Brown.
Yeah.
The way she won that time trial, that power, I mean, that was incredible. The way she dominated that event. She's obviously in great shape. Let's not forget, she did win Liège-Bastogne-Liège against all these other riders. Correct? I'm not mistaken.
No. And I was just going to say, she was going to be my wild card too. And I was going to say, why overcomplicate it? Like, she's plus 2,200 and she won out of a group at Liège. This is a one-day race. It's not the same, but it's in the ballpark. She beat Longo Borghini, Demi Vollering, Nia Doma, Kim Kasdao, who's very good, and Voss. No, Voss was in the chase group. But those are really good riders. It's not like some Panakuchen breakaway she won out of. So that's a very good pick.
And the shape she's in now, I mean, that was impressive. I was really impressed. I mean, if you look at her average speed on the same course under the same circumstances with rain, she did 49 kilometers average. There was a lot of men who did worse than her.
Yes, to the point where I didn't think the courses were the same, but they were, right?
They were identical.
Yeah,
they were identical. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to
so she's my second choice.
She's plus 2,900 on FanDuel, so even better. I don't know why she's down that far. I think people, maybe the market thinks she's a time trial specialist, but she's very good. She's very good at just old fashioned racing. I'm going to be a little boring. I'm going to go Elisa Longo Borghini plus 1,000 on Unibet, plus 900 on FanDuel. She's very good. She often can play the joker to like Vollering and Kopecky and end up winning when they look at each other. She's won a lot of big races in her career, but she just won
the Giro.
Yeah, Giro d'Italia. So we know she's in good shape. So that's a little boring pick, but I wouldn't be shocked if she's won the race on Sunday.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, Johan, and enjoy. Watch. It's a long race. It starts at like 11 a.m. and finishes at 6 p.m.
At 6.
Yeah, it's
it's going to be long.
Incredibly long race, but men's is on Saturday, women's is on Sunday, and I'm excited.
And also in the women is only 61 participants. I see. So
holy smokes, you're right. That's tiny. That is like an amateur race. Wow. And I'm looking at this. A lot of the riders, a large portion of them, will probably get dropped before they get to the circuit. So that will be really interesting when they come into the circuit and it's just the heavy hitters. The defending champion, by the way, her name is Anna Kiesenhofer.
Kiesenhofer,
yeah, she's in this race. So I would be surprised if she pulled that off again.
I don't think she won a single race
since then. No, just she made it count.
Yeah, it's quite a compliment. I mean, she's She
knew when she's won. She is Austrian national champion, so she's won national level events.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just wanted to make sure we mentioned that the defending champion is here. I would be shocked. She actually, just to give her a little shout out, before Tokyo, she was not a professional racer, so she had fewer commitments for racing.
She was a teacher.
Yeah, and she focused specifically on heat adaptation because Tokyo is really hot and humid in the summer. It can make it difficult to race. And then a lot of the work that she was doing on heat training is now like standard practice with the World Tour, but it was not as recent as 2021. So pretty interesting little factoid about that win. All right. Well, thanks, Johan. And we will be back. We'll take a little break, but we'll be back for stage 1 of the Vuelta a España later in August.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, talk to you soon. Bye.